Hi bookish friends and welcome to my channel. In today's video, we're wrapping up the month of September. September was actually a very productive month for me in terms of reading. It was the first month since summer that I actually properly picked up a book. Before I jump into all of the books that I've read and share my opinions and ratings of them, do let me know how many books you have read so far down in the comments below. Okay, let's get into it. So the first book I have finished is actually Namesake by Adrienne. I had about 100 pages left of it since I want to say freaking May of this year, honestly, and I just could not bring myself to finish it, but this month was the month I finally wrapped it up. I have mentioned this book in my mid-year reading check. You should watch that video if you're curious how it compares to Fable. I won't go too in-depth on it, but I will say that I gave this book 3 stars. It was decent. The plot was better, the writing was better, it finally got a bit more descriptive, a bit more rich, you could say. It's not a deep book. The whole time, even though there is a plot twist, you know where the plot is going anyway. This is a very light read. I will always say that this series is an in-betweener. When you need a break or you feel like you're in a slump or you haven't read for a while and you need a book to get you back into reading, I think this would be a good one. It's very light, very predictable, easy to read. I also think this book fell flat for me because I had certain expectations going into it, and it's probably my fault, but social media painted this book so incredible that I expected that incredible to come through. But like I said, while I enjoyed it, it was nice, it wasn't all that, if you know what I mean. The second book that I finished this month is Finale by Garber. Caraval Trilogy is my whole personality. This book, however, I did not rate 5 stars. I had certain issues with it. First of all, in this one, we follow both Tella and Scarlet together, so the POVs change. And let me tell you, while Tella was experiencing all of these adventures and perils, Scarlet was playing the Bachelorette with Nicholas and Julian. Like, what was that? It was just such a drastic difference between the POVs. I, at some point, was even questioning why we're seeing Scarlet's side to begin with. But then it kind of picked up, it leveled out, and I became satisfied with the way the book was going with dual POVs. Another complaint that I have is that if you compare Tella's book, which is legendary, with Finale, specifically her POVs, the romance in both of them is equal. As intense as it was in the second book, it is just as intense in her POVs. Scarlet's? Where was that? It did not deliver. If you compare her romance in the first book and the romance in her POVs, there wasn't even a sliver of it in there. That was my complaint. I wanted to see more of her love story, more expression of her love story. I know we kind of wrapped it up and concluded it, but I wanted more. I felt like Scarlet's POVs were just haphazard. They felt rushed. They felt incomplete. I felt like towards the end of the book, Garber found her rhythm in between the two, but the beginning felt just very rough. However, I am super happy about the way this book wrapped up. It was such a beautiful ending. I didn't cry, but it touched me. It made me a little bit emotional. I do like how it shows like this newspaper spread, and it's as if someone is writing about Garber in like a newspaper in this world. It explores the possibility of Stephanie covering other stories. We obviously know there is a trilogy, Once Upon a Broken Heart, which I cannot wait to get into, but I am so curious to read about the Fates. I feel like there's so many of them that we haven't spent enough time with, like the assassin. I really like his character, and I think there's a lot you can come up with, especially with his ability, or even other Fates that we never got to see. And I mean, we have a whole glossary of them. There's so many of those fates. I'm hoping that means that there's bigger plans for other spin-offs. So yes, I gave this book 4 stars. I'm very happy with how this trilogy ended, but I am a little bit sad that it did not deliver as much as I expected it to. And the final book that I have finished in September is Shatter. Oh, I actually think I forgot to say the name of the author in the intro, but this book is by Tahereh Mafi. Actually a very surprising book. in a sense that I rated it not only 5 stars but added it to my Hall of Fame. And it is my second Hall of Fame book of this year. I went into this book completely blind, and only upon ordering it did I realize that it was dystopian. All of my teenage obsessions with the Hunger Games and the Maze Runner, all of those feelings just came back rushing in. I had to pick this book up immediately. I found everything about this story fascinating. From the world where this takes place, it is so dark and sad and lonely and hopeless, to our FMC and where we find her. The way this author chose to approach the writing style, by the way, and the way it progresses throughout the book is so unique to me. So we start the book as if we are the journal that the FMC is writing in, and it really helps to convey that feeling of isolation and loneliness that she is in. And as the story progresses, we kind of move away from that journal style and the descriptions become more profound. The writing is less erratic and crazy, but still fast-paced. This is what I like. The way the book starts and the way the writing is just so like snappy. That pace remains. I almost felt like there was a metronome next to my ear while I was reading it. And honestly, I wasn't just eating this book up. I was drinking it and choking on it. I had to flip the page immediately. I was tripping over my own words because, you know, I read out loud. Trying to get to the next page, I had to stop my eyes from wandering lower while I'm saying the words of the line above. It was so incredible. If it wasn't for certain content making, I for sure would have finished this book in like 2 days. I loved all of the characters. All of them have amazing personality. However, I will say I am not a Warner girly. I don't know at what point we're supposed to become the Warner girly, but in this book, I just did not find him all that, if you know what I mean. He was supposed to be this big villain, and then he just shot the food on a table. I actually made fun of it in the conversation with my friend. He did not feel threatening enough. I don't know, that just really tickled me. I did not feel like he is scary in any way. But then it got better. The courtyard scene with the soldiers and everything, I was like, ooh, okay, I see the power, I feel the power. He's really so very sharp and respected and dangerous. Like, I love that. But then what happened? He became so desperate and just disgusting. How do I describe this without spoiling? The last in-person interaction of Juliet and Werner made me feel just disgusting. I wanted to take a shower and wash my eyeballs with some soap. I need him to pick himself back up and become the great villain that he is, but I actually have a feeling that he's an anti-hero. As for other characters, I liked Adam. I loved Adam actually, but then I started liking him because I stopped trusting him. I feel sus about him. There's something going on with Adam, and I was expecting there to be like a big reveal at the end of this book, but there wasn't. I am very wary of that guy, but I still do like him. He's very sweet to Juliet. Their whole story just melts my heart. Speaking of characters that melt my heart, the little James. Now that we know that this author is writing another spin-off from the Shatter universe that focuses on James 10 years after, it just makes me appreciate him so much more. But where we stand right now, he's an incredibly smart and very, very funny kid. I will give you an example. This is a quote from the book, but it doesn't spoil anything. When Juliet meets him for the first time, she asks him, "How old are you?" And he says, "I will be 11 next year." And she says, "So you're 10. And he goes, "I will be 12 in 2 years." Like, he refuses to say that he's 10, and I love that. He's just so cute and so smart. I love that kid. Speaking of funny characters, I genuinely believe that people sleep on Kenji. Kenji is hilarious. I love his flirting. He comes out as cringy sometimes. He's extremely confident and I love his banter, the way he always makes Juliet uncomfortable, and the way he always pisses off Adam is just my favorite thing. I adore funny characters. They usually end up being my favorites, and Kenji is exactly that, so I'm not surprised that I took a huge liking to him. All in all, I highly recommend this series to everybody. I feel like if I read this as a teenager, I would have been insanely obsessed, but even now, as a 26-year-old woman, I am still incredibly obsessed, and I can't believe it took me this long to get to it. So yeah, 5 stars, Hall of Fame. Love it. Now, for my October hopefuls, I actually have already started Crown of Midnight by Tahereh Maas, and this is the first book that I hope to finish in October. This is my third book in this series because I've read Assassin's Blade first. I'm very excited to jump into it. Based on what I've read so far, I'm literally only like 30 pages in. It is so depressing. We kind of ended Throne of Glass on middle to high note, I would say. And then when you jump into it, it's just sadness. It's tension and sadness, and I'm having a great time being back into this world, but all the relationships between the characters that I have cherished so much, it just crumbled. It seems broken, and they better repair it throughout the course of this book. Otherwise, I'm gonna be very, very upset. Next book I plan to finish in October is The Raven King by Maggie Stiefvater. So this book is the fourth and final book in the Raven Boys series. I have been putting off reading this one for so long because I just don't want to say goodbye to this world. The Raven Boys series is the series that got me back into reading at the beginning of this year / the end of last year, and I cherish these characters in this world so much that I just refuse to let them go. But I got my friend Maud, who you already heard about by now. I recommended this series to her, and bless her heart, she went ahead and bought a whole book set, and that girl reads fast. Let me tell you, she reads fast. So I have to finish this book before she finishes the whole series so we can properly talk about it. Am I really, really sad to be ripping these characters and this world away from my heart? Absolutely. But I'm equally just as excited to see how their story ends in the conclusion that we've been building up towards for so long. And since I'm feeling a bit optimistic because I've already started my first book of October, I am hoping that I'll be able to finish a third book. And that third book actually is The Cruel Prince. I will say this is one of those BookTok made me buy it books. I heard that this is heavily about politics, about the world, the state of the world, and I love those kinds of books, but I also heard that there's a subplot of romance, more so in the second and third book. So I know about Jude and I know about Carden, and I've seen quotes and moments from them in arts, which I will admit it's primarily the reason why I bought the book, but I am fully aware that this series is not necessarily focused on them. This is more about the politics of the world, which, like I said, those types of books tend to be one of my favorites. I am intrigued, I am excited. I actually have never read anything by Holly Black, but I do adore Cassandra Clare, and I know that Cassandra Clare and Holly Black are great friends. Since one of my favorite authors ever likes her and collaborates with her, I am more inclined to like her writing and to pick up her books. So this technically will be my first proper introduction to Holly Black, and I am really, really hoping that she will deliver. If you've watched all the way until this point in the video, thank you so much for staying with me. Please consider subscribing and ringing that bell. You can always change your mind. Keep reading and stay curious. Bye bye, guys.